Welcome to this online resource that is part of the course An Introduction to South Saami, a course that was held as part of several courses financed by REMODUS. REMODUS is an Erasmus Plus funded strategic partnership consisting of 10 European universities that offer courses in Uralic or Finno-Ugristik studies. This course is a structural introduction to South Saami, a small and endangered Uralic language spoken in Sweden and in Norway. In this part I am presenting a grammatical overview of the language. There is of course a lot to talk about. The language itself, its speakers, where it is spoken, endangerment, and all these topics can be problematized, but I will focus solely on grammar in this part. I also want to say that the course and the following slides and the content is based on my fieldwork experience when I wrote my dissertation, which is a grammatical description of South Saami called Towards a Grammar of Spoken South Saami, published by Stockholm University in 2023. And if you Google search for the title, you will find an online version that is freely available online. So let's start with a one-slide grammatical profile of South Saami, sort of a very dense overview of what the language is like if you're a topologist and you just want to get a quick overview of the language. South Saami is predominantly SOV, but the word order is not fixed. SVO occurs as well. But pragmatically SOV is definitely more common and pragmatically unmarked. This differs from most other Samic languages, which makes South Saami an outlier in this respect. We have the word class nouns, and nouns are inflected for 8 cases, and in the number categories singular and plural. As for verbs, they distinguish a singular, a dual, and a plural. However, I will say a little more about the dual, which is not always fully in use, at least in spoken language by elderly speakers. We have 2 morphological tenses, which are the morphological present and past, and we have syntactic tenses, which are the perfect and the pluperfect. We have 2 moods, the indicative and the imperative. The indicative is a full paradigm, whereas the imperative only has one distinct morphological form. And we have one aspect, which is the progressive. There's both a present progressive and a past progressive. The language shows nominative accusative alignment. That is, we find direct objects marked with the accusative. However, South Saami also uses differential object marking. That is, in the plural we find objects marked with either the nominative or the accusative, and they receive a different reading. So if a plural object is marked with the nominative, which is by far more frequent in the language and in the data, the object receives an indefinite or unspecific reading, like I read books. If I mark the plural object with the accusative, then the reading becomes specific or definite, like I have read these books. South Saami makes frequently use of pro-drop and also auxiliary drop. The auxiliary drop is interesting since we, as you will see later in language examples and in the next sessions, it means that sometimes it is difficult to distinguish between the perfect and the pluperfect. They can look alike. South Saami has mainly postpositions, but has a few prepositions as well. Postpositions usually require the genitive and prepositions the accusative. South Saami has two constructions to express predicative possession: a genitive possessive and a transitive have construction. The have construction is well known from other languages, Germanic languages, the contact languages Swedish and Norwegian, and also in neighboring Western Samic languages. The genitive possessive, however, is not found in other Samic languages. They usually exhibit a locational possessive. South Saami has a negative auxiliary, which is fully inflect. It inflects for person, number, and tense. And South Saami has lots of pronouns and proforms, which are usually inflected for case and number. And just a few words about phonology. South Saami has a large vowel inventory and a mid-size consonant inventory. It makes use of umlaut, or some kind of vowel assimilation. And it also shows phonetically pre-aspiration, a cross-linguistically rather rare phenomenon. Moving on to phonology, just a quick overview. South Saami has 15 consonant phonemes, which in a topological perspective is an average size. All of these consonants occur as geminates in word medial position, and no distinction between voiced and unvoiced sounds are made, except V and F. So V and F are the only consonants that show a phonological contrast in voice. And the language has 11 vowel phonemes, which in a cross-linguistic perspective is a large inventory. And I describe the languages as having 4 short and 4 long vowels, and 3 that do not distinguish length phonologically. That is important since all of these vowels, even if they might be long and short, occur phonetically in a 3-way length distinction, but more about this later. A quick look on the consonants. The system is not too unsimilar to surrounding languages, Swedish and Norwegian. We have the plosives p, t, k. However, all of these are unvoiced and unaspirated. They can be voiced in positions between vowels, of course, but we do not find any phonological contrasts between, for instance, a b voiced and p unvoiced. There's one affricate phoneme. However, this affricate has at least one allophone, so the affricate phoneme ch has also the allophone ch and t. However, again, there are no contrasts between these sounds, so I established one phoneme. We find most different phonemes in the fricatives f, v, s, sh, and h, h. The glottal fricative h has again quite a large number of allophones. It can be realized as a h, as an almost inaudible sound, as a fricative ch, and as a fricative ch. we have three nasals, m, n, and ng. Ng is rather restricted in its distribution. It does not occur word initially or finally, but only medially. There's one trill, r, which is often just a flap, r, r, and two approximants, l and y. As for the vowels, there are 4 short and 4 long vowels. The short ones are I, E, U, and A, and the long ones are I, E, U, and A. And then there are 3 vowel phonemes that do not distinguish length phonologically, which are Ö, Ä, and O. Below you see 2 vowel charts where I have measured the formants, formant 1 and 2, for short and long vowels. And as you can see, there is a bit of overlap between the different phonemes, but you can also clearly see that there are that these are the vowels we are dealing with. The quality of the long and the short a differs slightly, but maybe not as much as one would think of. So they are both quite mid a. So none of them is a very forward a or a very backwards a. The long one is a bit more in the back than the short a. There's also an overlap between U and O, which I can talk more about later on, and also an overlap between E and Ö, and we find also dialectal differences between E and Ö and U and O. That said, these charts are based on the language of one speaker, and all the vowels are produced in the same environment. Yes, so South Sami is generally described as having lots of umlaut or vowel alternations, which is a change of the stem vowel that assimilates according to a following vowel. And an example is, for instance, the infinitive of the verb to fry, bisset, which becomes in the first person singular present tense, I fry, bessam. So bisset changes into bessam. And while we can establish phonological rules, they are synchronically not always entirely transparent. However, in the table below you see a couple of these alternations, as I call them, maybe a little bit precautious. So an E changes into an A in front of an A, like bisser becomes bessa. An U changes into an A in front of an A, like juhtie into jachta. An U changes into an O in front of an O, like provke, provko. An A changes into an O in front of an O, like tarja into torjo. And an O changes into an Ö in front of an I, like poeti, pöti. Just a few words about the phonetics of South Sami. Most words are disyllabic, so they follow the structure consonant, verb, consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel. And either the first vowel has to be long, or the consonant has to be long. So we don't find a short structure. So to exemplify this, we either have a word like bako with a long first vowel ako and a short consonant in the second syllable. So bako, word. Or we find a short vowel followed by a long consonant, like in the word for name, numme. Or we have to have closed syllables, like in the word for work, parko. A short vowel followed by a consonant cluster, rko, across syllable boundaries, parko. But we would not find words like pako with a short a and short k. Yeah. And functional words can be monosyllabic, but usually all words are at least disyllabic. Stress is fixed on the first syllable, and there is a secondary stress on the third syllable if the word has more than 2 syllables. The example word here is luhketeja, which means teacher. Luhketeja, luhketeja.